Hello, welcome everyone to another Tea and Books. Still online, unfortunately. So here I am in front of the big comfy chair, and I'm still having some trouble sort of letting go of Christmas. So the tea that I'm drinking today is Sleigh Ride from David's Tea, which is really nice. And I actually have a candle burning that's Chalet Chic, which gives me a little bit of almost a spruce scent. So I still feel like there's a Christmas tree in the room. So I'm feeling very cozy, and this is a great time to stay home and be cozy with a good book. So Tea and Books, it's a good time for Tea and Books. If you have any questions about what's going on with the library right now with these new Stage 2 recommendations, I just want to let you know that while we've had to roll back all of our in-library programs for a little bit, that we're still doing our online programs and the library is still open. We just have a 50% capacity limit, but we are still open. You can still come in and get a book, but we totally understand if you would prefer to continue with contactless pickup or something like that. You just have to give us a call at 905-985-7686 and just let the staff know that you want a note on your record that you prefer contactless pickup. But other than that, the library is still open. All of our staff are fully vaccinated. Almost half of our staff have had their boosters, and they're all masking up and staying safe. And so far, knock wood, we have managed to keep everyone safe and healthy. So I hope all of you out there are staying safe and healthy. And if not, then I hope you at least can stay home and read some books and not feel too horrible. Just grab your cup of tea and a good book and get cozy. So today I have 3 different books that I'm going to talk about, and the first one was a lot of fun. I read this a couple of months ago, and the title, The Husbands by Chandler Baker. So for those of you who might remember the Stepford Wives, The Husband is sort of a twist on the Stepford Wives concept a little bit. So it's a very interesting book. There's a little bit of everything in it. There's a little bit of humor. There's a little bit of a mystery and suspense aspect to it. And I liked it because I felt like it really made me think. It made me think about, the dynamics of a relationship and parenting and how people feel about it. There's one part in the book where someone makes an observation. One of the men makes an observation, who is recently divorced, that in every relationship there's sort of a driver and a passenger, and that he felt that when he and his wife had been married that he'd been the sort of lazy passenger waiting for her to call the shots, and that now he was on his own, he had to be the driver because there was no one else to do it. And I just thought that was an interesting way to look at it, the driver and the passenger within a relationship, and it made me think a lot about that. And I like how this book really explores that. So once again, for anybody who's just joining us, the book I'm currently talking about is The Husbands by Chandler Baker. And I'm just going to read a little bit from it to give you a sense of what the book is like. Nora is not in a fight with her husband. She thinks about the phrasing conjured here, in a fight, an idiosyncratic idiom dredged from her middle school years, and with it a vision of long-sleeved Hollister t-shirts, chopsticks through buns, and "I'm not speaking to you this week." She's 35 now, long past the stage of brushing her tricky curls into a cloud of frizz, but not so far that if she were in a fight, this wouldn't be an appropriately moody, anxious, and adolescent way to describe it, especially given the number of times Hayden has asked, "What's wrong?" and she's responded with, "Nothing." Nothing is what you say when to say everything would be ridiculous. She's being a drama queen. That's the term for it, but only in her head where it doesn't really count. At a stoplight they sit in their different silences, hers brooding, his oblivious. She's a passenger in her own SUV, Hayden, the driver, as she prefers, even though with the seat pushed way back to accommodate a thick-set rugby player, it jacks with her settings. Hayden has a bullish neck and a smattering of bald scars cut into his hairline from where he's had stitches. She finds them sexy even when she's pissed, which, as a reminder, she's not. Also, he's got a fading blue tattoo peeking out from the hair on his right forearm, and more often than she cares to admit, she finds herself feeling proud because she never would have guessed she'd grown into the type of woman to marry a man with an arm tattoo. "It's kind of far," he says, not meaning anything by it. "It's not that far," by which she means don't start with me yet. "Look, it's on the left. Here, see?" She points out the windshield to the neighborhood's grand entrance, walls decked in hill country stone, with the name Dynasty Ranch spelled out in slanting cursive across its side. A fountain sprays a plume of water. It's, yes, a bit ostentatious, but there are worse things, aren't there? Dynasty Ranch is an enclave community 10 minutes outside of Austin's city limits, nestled into a land of self-serve frozen yogurt shops, movie theaters with enormous reclining seats, and chain Mexican food restaurants that all boast kids' playscapes. It's quite exclusive. Or at least that's what the tasteful home brochure has claimed when her secretary dropped it off into the mesh mail bin on her office desk. Really, they must have spent a fortune on advertising. Hayden grunts and steers into the left lane without using his blinker, a mistake which she hand to heart does not mention. "We're only here to look," he says. "We have plenty of time." Plenty of time, like the growing bulge of her stomach is a ticking time bomb. But Hayden apparently is happy to procrastinate for a little while before getting around to the tedious task of dismantling it. She thinks, who in their right mind wouldn't want to neutralize the threat straight away? Have time to spare on the back end, a margin of error, a cushion. While Hayden believes it will get done. Often it doesn't. He will take out the trash later, do the dishes later, clear the table later. She waits, she bides time. She goes with the flow and her world goes kablooey. It's happened before and before and before. It will get done, but the part that he leaves out is that he'll have nothing to do with the doing. It's like he thinks their house, their toddler, their lives are kept on track by magic, as though she is the family Rumpelstiltskin. He goes to bed and voila! See, Nora? All taken care of. And my God, woman, why are you so sweaty? So you sort of see where Nora is coming from at the beginning of the book. She's sort of got a little bit of a chip on her shoulder about her husband and the way that she has to sort of manage all the tasks. It's not that he doesn't help out around the house. He'll do anything she asks him to, but her issue is, why does she always have to ask? Why doesn't he do it himself without being asked, like she does her tasks? And of course, this sets up a not uncommon dynamic for a relationship. But as she finds out more about Dynasty Ranch, she notices that the husbands in the Dynasty Ranch community behave quite differently. And the women who live in the Dynasty Ranch community are all very well employed, lawyers, business owners, professors, doctors, it's very interesting to see how she gets pulled further and further into this idea of buying a house in this community and how her husband responds and all of the things that happen after that. So once again, that was The Husbands by Chandler Baker. It's a light, interesting read. And as I said, a little bit of suspense. very diverting right now, so I would recommend it. So the other two books I'm going to talk about today, the next one is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And this was one of the biggest titles of the past year in 2021. So maybe a lot of you have read it already, but if you have not, it's a really excellent book. It's a bit of it's not quite a mystery, but there is a bit of an element to it because it starts off at the beginning talking about these two twins that disappeared from this community as teenagers, and nobody really knew where they went or what happened to them. But now, many years later, one of them has returned with a little girl. And so it's a very... it's a sort of a delicate subject matter for a book. The author herself is Black, and this book deals a lot with colorism. So colorism is specifically racism within a community that includes people of color. So it can be basically people preferring a lighter shade of skin. So even within the Black community, especially historically, because this book originally is opening in sort of the 50s, and so you see a little bit more about this community, which is sort of odd in the way that it came about, and how people in the community feel about people with different shades of color, even though everyone in the community is Black. And of course, the book sort of deals with these identical twins who leave the community and run away, and then end up going their separate ways. And one of them actually decides that since she can pass for white, that she's going to do that. So she basically leaves behind her sister and her whole community to work as a white woman and marry a white man and keep this fiction throughout her life that she is white. And her sister, identical twin sister, goes the other way and ends up marrying a man who is very, very dark skinned, and having a daughter who is as well. And those cousins meet in the future and of course have no idea that they're related to one another. So it's an interesting exploration, and it hit close to home for me because in my family, my mother is from Jamaica, and this actually happened in her family. When we did genealogy recently, we found that out about my mother's family, and that they had actually grown up being quite proud of the fact that they were a white family within Jamaica, because at the time, there was a lot of unrest there. And it turns out that that's not the case, and that is something that even my mother was not aware of, that actually that her great-great-grandmother had been, or not great-great, her great-grandmother had been a slave. And so this is something at the time in the U.S., just after all the Jim Crow laws came in and everything, there was a one-drop rule where anyone that supposedly even had one drop of blood from a Black person, no matter how far back, was seen as Black, and was discriminated against because of that. So there were a lot of families at the time, and this is an interesting thing historically to explore, the fact that at that time there were families that would try and do that they would try and distance themselves from the Black community, and it ended up with a lot of complicated stories. So that's what The Vanishing Half is. It's a complicated story about these identical twin sisters who choose to go very different directions. So I'm just going to read a little bit about the town itself so that you can understand the sort of background of growing up in this town and what happened with these two sisters as a result. It was a strange town. Mallard, named after the ring-necked ducks living in the rice fields and marshes, a town that, like any other, was more idea than place. The idea arrived to Alphonse Doerr in 1848 as he stood in the sugarcane fields he'd inherited from the father who'd once owned him. The father, now dead. The now freed son wished to build something on those acres of land that would last for centuries to come. A town for men like him, who would never be accepted as white, but refused to be treated as black. A third place. His mother, rest her soul, had hated his lightness. When he was a boy, she'd shoved him under the sun, begging him to darken. Maybe that's what made him first dream of the town. Lightness, like anything inherited at great cost, was a lonely gift. He'd married a mulatto even lighter than himself. She was pregnant then with their first child, and he imagined his children's children, lighter still like a cup of coffee steadily diluted with cream. Each generation lighter than the one before. Soon others came. Soon idea and place became inseparable, and Mallard carried throughout the rest of St. Landry Parish. Colored people whispered about it and wondered about it. White people couldn't believe it even existed. When St. Catherine's was built in 1938, the diocese sent over a young priest from Dublin who arrived certain that he was lost. Didn't the bishop tell him that Mallard was a colored town? Well, who were these people walking about, fair and blonde and red-headed, the darkest ones no swarthier than a Greek? Was this who counted for colored in America? Who whites wanted to keep separate? Well, how could they ever tell the difference? By the time the Vignes twins were born, Alphonse Doerr was dead, long dead and gone. But his great-great-granddaughters inherited his legacy whether they wanted to or not. Even Desiree, who'd complained before every Founder's Day picnic, who rolled her eyes when the founder was mentioned in school, as if none of that business had anything to do with her. This would stick after the twins disappeared. How Desiree never wanted to be part of the town that was her birthright. How she felt that you could flick history away like shrugging a hand off your shoulder. You can escape a town, but you cannot escape blood. Somehow the Vignes twins believed themselves capable of both. And yet, if Alphonse Doerr could have strolled through the town he'd once imagined, he would have been thrilled by the sight of his great-great-great-granddaughters. Twin girls, creamy skin, hazel eyes, wavy hair. He would have marveled at them. For the child to be a little bit more than the parents. What could be more wonderful than that? Now, the twins vanished on August 14th, 1954, right after the Founder's Day dance. So that's sort of where the action begins, with them vanishing and trying to find out where they went and what happened to them. And that story comes out quite slowly throughout the book. So it's a very interesting read because you're getting little bits as you go, trying to figure out what happened to the two sisters and why they ended up living so separately and going in such different directions, and how they end up finding each other again, and how they react to meeting each other again after many years. So it's, like I say, it's one of the best books of the year, according to the New York Times, The Vanishing Half. And I would really recommend that one as well. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about was eagerly awaited by many people this year, Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. So for those of you who don't recognize his name right off, Anthony Doerr wrote All the Light We Cannot See, which won the Pulitzer Prize when it came out. It was actually one of my favorite books of the decade, All the Light We Cannot See. I thought it was an amazing book. So I was really, really excited to read this one, Cloud Cuckoo Land. So Cloud Cuckoo Land is specifically a phrase that's used in Aristophanes' play, The Birds. So it is an amazing place where magic happens and birds live and food, and there are waterfalls of honey, and it's just this beautiful, amazing place. So the whole book is very intricate in terms of how it fits together. It fits together almost like a puzzle, this Cloud Cuckoo Land. And it's similar a little bit in that respect to All the Light We Cannot See. There's very short chapters, and there's sort of each of them dealing with a different part of a story. And you're having trouble at the beginning figuring out what they have in common, because one story is set in Byzantine times and is dealing with a young girl who is stealing books, and then another story is actually set in a future time, and it almost seems as though the young woman in that case is on a spaceship and has been isolated for some reason. And then there's another sort of more modern time period where it's set in a library where a bunch of children are preparing for a play that they're about to put on. So the idea within the book is that there is this story that was written by Diogenes that sort of talks about this man who lived life as a donkey, a bird, a fish, and a human, and how this happened, this whole story of how it happened. And that's the play that the kids are putting on. So there's a really interesting background to it, because it's dealing a lot with this idea of stories and how eternal stories are, and how stories can connect people over thousands of years. So that's the basic idea of Cloud Cuckoo Land, is this idea of how people can be connected by a story. And I'm going to just read you this section because it's the current day story and it is set in a library. So of course that appeals to me. Zeno. He escorts 5 fifth graders from the elementary school to the public library through curtains of falling snow. He is an octogenarian in a canvas coat. His boots are fastened with Velcro. Cartoon penguins skate across his necktie. All day joy has steadily inflated inside his chest, and now, this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. on a Thursday in February, watching the children run ahead down the sidewalk, Alex Hess wearing his papier-mâché donkey head, and Rachel Wilson carrying a plastic torch. Natalie Hernandez lugging a portable speaker. The feelings threaten to capsize him. They pass the police station, the Parks Department, Eden's Gate Realty. The Lakeport Public Library is a high-gabled 2-story gingerbread Victorian on the corner of Lake and Park that was donated to the town after the First World War. Its chimney leans, its gutters sag, packing tape holds together cracks in 3 of the front-facing windows. Several inches of snow have already settled on the junipers flanking the walk and atop the book drop box on the corner, which has been painted to look like an owl. The kids charge up the front walk, bound onto the porch, and high-five Sharif, the children's librarian, who has stepped outside to help Zeno navigate the stairs. Sharif has lime green earbuds in his ears, and a craft glitter twinkles on the hair on his arms. His t-shirt says, "I like big books and I cannot lie." Inside, Zeno wipes fog from his eyeglasses. Construction paper hearts are taped to the front of the welcome desk. A framed needlepoint on the wall behind it reads, "Questions answered here." On the computer table, on all 3 monitors, screensaver spirals in synchrony. Screensaver spirals twist in synchrony. Between the audiobook shelf and two shabby armchairs, a radiator leak seeps through the ceiling tiles and drips into a 7-gallon trash can. Plip, plop, plip. The kids scatter snow everywhere as they stampede upstairs heading for the children's section, and Zeno and Sharif share a smile as they listen to their footfalls reach the top of the staircase and stop. "Whoa," says the voice of Olivia Ott. "Holy mogoly," says the voice of Christopher D. Sharif takes Zeno's elbow as they ascend. The entrance to the second story has been blocked with a plywood wall spray-painted gold, and at its center, over a small arched door, Zeno has written, "O Zene hostes e anoisen, hina mathes a taumastes." Sorry, my ancient Greek is rusty. The fifth graders cluster again against the plywood, and snow melts on their jackets and backpacks, and everyone looks at Zeno, and Zeno waits for his breath to catch up with the rest of them. Does everyone remember what it says? "Of course," says Rachel. "Duh," says Christopher. On her tiptoes, Natalie runs a finger beneath each word. "Stranger, whoever you are, open this to learn what will amaze you." "Oh my flippin' gosh," says Alex, his donkey head under his arm. "It's like we're about to walk into the book." Sharif switches off the stairwell light, and the children crowd around the little door in the red glow of the exit sign. "Ready?" calls Zeno, and from the other side of the plywood, Marion, the library director, calls, "Ready!" One by one, the fifth graders pass through the little arched doorway into the children's section. The tables, shelves, and bean bags that normally fill the space have been pushed against the wall, and in their places stand 30 folding chairs. Above the chairs, dozens of cardboard clouds coated with glitter hang from the rafters by threads. In front of the chairs is a small stage, and behind the stage, on a canvas sheet, hung across the entire rear wall, Marion has painted a city in the clouds. Golden towers cut by hundreds of little windows and crowned by pennants rise in clusters. Around their spires whirl dense flights of birds, little brown buntings and big silver eagles, birds with long curving tails and others with long curving bills, birds of the world and birds of the imagination. Marion has shut off the overhead lights, and in the beam of a single karaoke light on a stand, the clouds sparkle and the flocks shimmer and the towers seem illuminated from within. "It's," says Olivia. "Better than says Christopher. "Cloud Cuckoo Land," whispers Rachel. Natalie sets down her speaker and Alex leaps on stage, and Marion calls, "Careful, some of the paint may still be wet." Zeno lowers himself into a chair in the front row. Every time he blinks, a memory ripples across the underside of his eyelids. His father pratfalls into a snowbank. A librarian slides open the drawer of a card catalog. A man in prison scratches Greek characters into the dust. Sharif shows the kids the backstage area that he has created behind 3 bookshelves, packed with props and costumes, and Olivia pulls a latex cap over her hair to make herself look bald, and Christopher drags a microwave box painted to look like a marble sarcophagus to the center of the stage, and Alex reaches to touch a tower of the painted city, and Natalie slides a laptop from her backpack. Marion's phone buzzes. "Pizzas are ready," she says into Zeno's good ear. "I'll walk over and pick them up. Be back in a jiff." So the immediate next chapter after this is following someone named Seymour, who watches Marion leave the library, and then, thinking the library is empty with her gone, goes into it with his backpack that has a bomb in it. So I'm telling you that just as a little taster, because that's either going to make you want to read the book more to find out about this person about to plant a bomb in the library, or it's going to make you want to read it less because you don't want to read about a library being bombed. But I would highly recommend this book. Once again, where did I put it? Oh, once again, that is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. And it is a really wonderful book, and it's especially interesting to see how all of the different stories within it and all of the different people that you meet and get to know through it, what their relationship is with the story and with libraries. And it's just, I thought it was just beautiful how it all came together, and it really fascinated me throughout. And I was very excited at getting to use my ancient Greek a bit too, I got to admit, but you don't have to worry. Everything in it is translated whenever there is any Greek, so it's not a problem. At any rate, I'm just going to do a quick recap that those were the 3 books I talked about today for anybody who joined us late. The Husbands by Chandler Baker, Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr, and The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. All fabulous books that I really enjoyed. If you like lighter fare, then the lightest book among them would be The Husbands by Chandler Baker, but they're all excellent books. And I hope you all take care and stay safe out there. And I hope we'll see you at the library again soon. And Kyle will be doing the next Tea and Books. At this point, it looks like he will be doing it online. First week of February, February 3rd. So we'll see you soon.